minus 28 tankers in just one night. Ukraine is completely changing its war strategy, and President Zelensky has even established a long-range strike command which is already operational. Today, Ukraine's drone forces reported that in just a few nights, maritime drones launched a real hunt against Russia's shadow fleet. These are dozens of tankers that Moscow uses to bypass sanctions and transport oil. Plus, all these dozens of tankers caught fire right in the Sea of Azov. The result was that for the first time during the entire full-scale war, Russia closed the Azov-Don Canal and the Kerch Strait, and up to a quarter of all Russian wheat exports go through them. Grain prices in Europe immediately spiked, and this is a signal to everyone that it's necessary to force the balding dwarf Vladimir Putin to end the war as soon as possible, otherwise it will affect absolutely everyone. In this episode, there's a big overview of news on one big topic. How is Ukraine sinking the shadow fleet of the Russian Federation and strangling Russian oil and grain exports at the same time? Why? Did Zelensky create a separate command for long-range strikes on Russia? How did Ukrainian strikes on oil refineries disable almost half of Russia's oil refining capacity and cause a fuel crisis? Why does the production of Patriot missiles, which Trump allowed for Ukraine, back Vladimir Putin into a corner? How is Russia responding, from the new Garen 4 Seeker jet drone to attempts to stage an offensive for show? I'm Alexei Pechi. Let's discuss these topics, but first... My name is Alexei Pechi. Let's discuss all these topics together. But before we start, I ask everyone to subscribe to this YouTube channel. We are moving towards the 300,000 mark. I would be grateful if you personally become part of these 300,000. They took half of the oil refining plants out of operation and caused... So, let's start with the main thing. On the night of July 11, the Ukrainian Defense Forces carried out a new large-scale operation in the Sea of Azov. And the numbers are impressive. According to the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, 21 Russian tankers were hit. In addition to them, the Ukrainian military hit 4 tugboats, 2 dry cargo ships, and a dredger, a total of 28 vessels in one night. Well, you know, this is probably a record for the entire war. Just think about it. 28 vessels were attacked in one night in the Sea of Azov. But 21 of them were specifically tankers with oil and petroleum products, and again, that's just in one night. Commander of Ukraine's Unmanned Systems Forces, Robert Madya Brody, revealed the full scale of the entire hunt for Putin's shadow fleet. Over the course of 5 nights from July 6 to July 11, Ukraine's Unmanned Systems Forces struck as many as 76 Russian vessels. He also reported that because of the strikes, movement through the Kerch Strait was halted. And on the night of July 11, Ukrainian forces attacked 53 military targets in occupied Crimea and in the south, including the fleet and energy infrastructure. And this was not a one-time action, it's already a series. It all started on the night of July 9 when Ukrainian defense forces launched a massive strike on Russian targets in the Sea of Azov. At that time, 12 ships were hit, as well as an oil terminal and an ammunition depot belonging to the occupiers. Then there were more attacks, more strikes, and in just a few days, Ukraine turned the Sea of Azov from a quiet rear area into a hunting ground for Russian tankers. It's like a shooting gallery there now. The drone forces are just hunting and attacking, and notice the Russians simply can't do anything about it. Absolutely nothing. All they can do is block the strait. That's it. And here is the most important consequence, showing that the strategy worked. Russia has taken an unprecedented step. Due to drone attacks, the authorities of the Russian Federation have temporarily suspended navigation in the Azov-Don Canal along the waterway connecting the Don River with the Sea of Azov. Moreover, Russian border guards have notified shipping companies about the suspension of applications for passage through the Kerch Strait. This means that the Kerch Strait is also being closed. Why is this strike hitting the most sensitive spot? Because this hits not only oil but also grain, another source of income for the Russian budget. According to analysts, up to 25% of Russia's wheat exports pass through the Sea of Azov, including the grain that Russians brazenly steal from the occupied territories of Ukraine. And why? By the way, this justifies the strikes on dry cargo ships. Along the coast are two of Russia's largest grain-producing regions. These are the Rostov region and Krasnodar Krai. And the reaction of the global market was immediate. Amid reports of suspended shipping, wheat prices on the European Euronext exchange rose by 4% on Friday, reaching a 6-week high. And analysts note that this is actually the first serious disruption in the trade of Russian grain in all 4.5 years of the full-scale war. And let me remind you that on the night of July 10, drones attacked Azov, Taganrog, and areas of the Rostov region. In Azov, 2 fuel storage facilities caught fire. And on the night of July 11 in the Taganrog Bay, drones attacked 4 more Russian vessels, including a methanol tanker. As they say, the noose was gradually tightening, until Moscow simply had to close off the waters. And now the most important thing, this hunt for tankers in the Sea of Azov isn't some improvised move. It's part of Ukraine's new military doctrine. And Volodymyr Zelensky officially formalized it. Next, I'll quote the President of Ukraine. Today I signed a decree on the creation of a special command within the armed forces of Ukraine. A command for long-range, effectively global operations against Russia in this war. The new structure's task is clearly defined: to concentrate all available resources in order to further significantly reduce Russia's military potential. The president did not name the commander, only noting that the person would be strong and definitely highly experienced. At the same time, joint rapid response forces have been created, headed by the hero of Ukraine, Brigadier General Dmytro Voloshin. In fact, this is a change in the war strategy. Ukraine is officially transitioning. Long-range strikes on oil refineries, on tankers, on defense industry plants, on energy facilities, and so on. Previously, there were separate operations like Pautina. People were impressed, but it took a long time to prepare, happened once, and then there were pauses. No, now all of this is being transferred to the category of an independent command, a branch of the military that will work only on these kinds of strikes. That is, the war is systematically moving deep into the Russian rear. But the naval hunt for tankers is only one half of this strategy. The second half is strikes on oil refining, and here the results are even more significant. According to the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, as of early July 2026, Ukrainian defense forces have disabled 43% of Russia's oil refining capacity, that is, almost half. Just in the past month, 8 of Russia's top 10 oil refineries have been successfully attacked. The total losses for the industry over the years since August 2025 have reached $13.5 billion. The geography of the strike shows that there are almost no unreachable targets left. The General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine revealed the consequences of the July attacks only. The strike on the St. Petersburg oil terminal on July 4 damaged 8 storage tanks of various capacities at once. At the Borysoglebsk airfield in the Voronezh region on July 8/28, tank cars caught fire, with biokerosene with a total volume of 1,600 cubic meters. The Slavneftyanos oil refinery in Yaroslavl and the plant in Kstovo were hit. The culmination was the Omsk oil refinery, which is the most powerful in Russia. It was hit on July 6 at a distance of about 2,500 kilometers from the border. After that, there was basically only one large plant left in Russia that hadn't been attacked. It's the one located in Irkutsk Oblast. It's not in the top 10, but nevertheless, in fact, this is the only refinery that hasn't been attacked yet, Irkutsk Oblast. The result for the Russian rear is a fuel crisis. Production of gasoline, attention, has dropped to 65% of the average summer consumption level by Russians in the domestic market. And now, against the backdrop of the successes of the Ukrainian army, there was also major political news. This week, the United States agreed to grant Ukraine a license to produce missiles for the Patriot systems, and Donald Trump publicly praised Zelensky, calling his work outstanding. Why is this important? Well, the Washington Post sees this move as a trap for Vladimir Putin. They say that if Ukraine has enough Patriot missiles, the Russian occupiers will lose their primary weapon, meaning ballistic missiles. According to the publication, now it's Putin who will have to rack his brains over how to present these realities on the ground in a more favorable light, after the Trump administration began to publicly acknowledge Ukraine's successes. The Kremlin's reaction today revealed confusion. And Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov stated that Moscow does not consider all this an escalation, but calls Washington's approach mistaken. And he warned that the decision could only prolong the war. Really? Really? So you see, according to the Russians' logic, although I think they know exactly what they're saying, but by their logic, if Ukraine didn't fight back at all, the war would have ended a long time ago. Like, when you try to fight back, when you hit this aggressor, Russia, right in the face, when you punch this pathetic dictator, Putin, in the face, that drags out the war. Like, why are you hitting? Don't hit. Just, well, accept it. Russians, remember one very important thing. Ukrainians are not pushovers like you. You are the pushovers. You are classic pushovers. You started having a fuel crisis and you're like, everything's great. I'll go stand in line at the gas station, wait in line for a whole day, and they'll give me 20 liters of gasoline. But Russians don't say to Putin, what's going on? How did you let it get to this? They say no. What? Us? We can't be conquered. What? We'll just switch to Chinese electric cars. We'll go and lick the boots of our big Chinese brother and ask, please give us electric cars and solar panels. That's what they're proud of. I mean, but I want to emphasize you forget that Ukrainians are not Russians. Even Kuchma wrote, Ukraine is not Russia. Well, but here, once again, an honest disclaimer is important, in order to be fair. Military experts are now warning that starting the production of Patriot missiles will not solve the problem quickly. Due to the complexity of the technology, full-scale production may only begin in about 2 years. And the full production cycle of PAC-3 missiles takes about 24 months and involves around 400 suppliers of different components. Licensed production of such missiles today exists only in Germany and Japan. But on the other hand, there is another piece of news that eases the situation. Patriot missiles for Ukraine, Germany will already be producing them now, while we set up our own production. Russia, of course, is not sitting idly by either, and their response is also about drones. Russian sources today released the specifications of the new Geran Force Seeker strike drone, a heavily upgraded Shahed. The stated flight range is 550 kilometers with a warhead weight of up to 50 kilograms. What makes this drone dangerous? Back in May, Ukrainian intelligence reported that Geran 4 received a new reinforced airframe, improved aerodynamics, and importantly, a Chinese-made turbojet engine. And now it can accelerate up to 500 kilometers per hour and fly at an altitude of up to 5 kilometers. But the main thing is that Russia created this drone specifically as a countermeasure against Ukrainian interceptor drones, which had become too effective. Russia is also trying to present a turning point on the ground. Russian military officials said Ukrainian forces have begun using ground robots in their offensive, which in itself is an acknowledgement that the initiative is increasingly shifting to unmanned systems. And Ukraine is using these unmanned systems not only in the air and at sea, but now also on land, on the ground. At the same time, Russia itself has no real major successes at the front. Well, advances are only being recorded in certain sections of the front. The conclusion is very simple. Ukraine has changed its strategy. Instead of engaging in exhausting positional battles, Ukraine is strangling Russia economically and logistically, with precision and deep behind the lines. In 1 week, 76 damaged vessels, the hunt for Putin's shadow fleet, the blocked Azov Don Canal and Kerch Strait, a spike in global wheat prices, and so on. Plus, almost half of Russian oil refining has been put out of commission. In Russia, there's a fuel crisis, 13.5 billion in losses just from oil refining alone, plus the new long-range strike command of the Ukrainian armed forces, which is putting all of this on a systematic basis. And on top of that, we also get a license to produce Patriots, which threatens to deprive Russia of its trump card, ballistic missiles. Meanwhile, the old man Vladimir Putin keeps presenting fake advances on the front as victories. For him, for the old geezer, for the cuddly grandpa Vladimir Putin, victory is these infantry assaults on the front. They captured another 100 meters of sacred Ukrainian land. Victory! Meanwhile, Ukraine decided long ago not to fight head-on with these savage Russians. Ukraine decided to strike at the enemy's rear. And so while Putin comes out and says, look, we've captured another 100 meters of Ukrainian land, he forgets to add, almost as an afterthought, that meanwhile Ukraine has destroyed all our oil refineries and is pushing us out of the Sea of Azov. We're blocking the straits, blocking all exports of oil, wheat and petroleum products. We're in deep trouble with gasoline all over the country. Ukraine is ramping up long-range attacks, putting nearly all of Russia under threat. He keeps forgetting to mention this. For him, as an old geezer, victory is like in World War I. It's head-to-head, bayonet to bayonet on the front lines. And what's important is that even the announcement about launching new Geran 4 Seeker jet drones is, pay attention, a response from the defender, not the attacker. Russia can only respond to the successes of the Ukrainian armed forces. So look, the Geran 4 Seeker appeared in response to Ukraine creating successful interceptor drones. Ukraine has moved the war from the front line into the Russian economy, into tankers, oil refineries, ports, canals and so on. And judging by the fact that Moscow had to block its own export corridor for the first time, this new strategy of Ukraine is working perfectly. I'll leave it at that. Share your opinions and conclusions in the comments under this episode. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and don't forget to like. If you want to support the work of this channel, you can do so with any donation using the links and details in the description of this video. I would appreciate any support from you. That's it for now. Take care. Goodbye, everyone.